Hello, hello. Excited to be here. Thank you for being on the West Coast. I'm Henri. So I'm one of the founders of Privy. We build basically everything you need to bring users on chain, no matter how much they know about crypto or not. So this is wallet infrastructure for every user. Broadly, we build user onboarding methods, so your users can come in with the means that are most familiar to them, be it coming in via WhatsApp or coming in with their existing Phantom. We build embedded wallets. This is the underlying key system that allows you to build self-custodial wallets for any user, even if they've never heard of crypto. We build the low-level key management that goes under the hood here, as well as all of the on-chain automations that go with this. And you might wonder, what is this? Why are we talking about infrastructure in what is meant to be about app development? The initial name of this talk was called Closing the Gap. And it was, what do we need to do to actually take crypto products mainstream? And I think when we raised our Series A, this was one of the core slides. Do we really need more infra when all that there seems to be in crypto is infra? And I think the reality is closing the gap is no longer a good name for this talk track because the gap has effectively been closed. Over the past 3 years, in huge part in the Solana ecosystem, we've basically seen major improvements across scalability, usability, and security of these systems. And so the talk instead is all your users on chain, specifically rules that we've learned serving over 1,000 developers and 50 million users in how they actually take these rails and build compelling experiences with them. So the bottom line, if nothing else from the talk, is I think we've kind of run out of excuses. Today, it used to be we always said, well, crypto is in its infancy, Solana's not ready yet, we need whatever, and that is just not true anymore. All of the systems are here, and we can build the types of experiences that we want to use in crypto today. So with that, I'm going to get into the rules that we've learned working with teams like Pump, like Jupiter, like Yapster, and a number of other incredible builders in the space. So the first rule is meet your users where they are. And maybe I'll say the last talk with Bobby and Imran was interesting because it was what do you have to be thinking about if you're coming in from traditional app development and coming into crypto? I think here I'm looking at what are crypto builders often thinking about that they need to take a step back on and realize what the rules of product building are for any mainstream user. So the first rule is meet your users where they are. Broadly, you go to the user, they don't come to you. Trying to create new user behavior is exceptionally hard. Trying to sort of bend your user to the technical primitives that you've chosen is more or less not going to happen for the most part. And so you have to pick your battles, and for the most part, you have to understand and walk back from who are you building for. There's this tweet that I read every night before going to bed. It's from Ilmoy from Vector, a builder that we love, that we work with. And Ilmoy built Tensor, he's building Vector, and he talks about the fact that there are two ways to win in crypto. You can build extremely close to compliance. This is payments, this is centralized exchanges, this is RWAs. It attracts big boy capital and is optimized for fun, is optimized for being regulatorily compliant. Or you can build as far away from compliance, as close to basically letting the user choose their own path as possible. And these are DEXs, self-custodial wallets, Pum.fun, and it attracts a very different type of user experience. And so there's obviously shades of nuance in between, but the truth is, crypto is a bit of a tale of two cities today. You've got, to really simplify it, stable coins on the one hand, meme coins on the other. And for the most part, your product is going to fit into one of these two paradigms in terms of what the core constituency you're trying to build for is. So over time, you can nuance, but I would urge you to be brutally honest with yourself in terms of what is the core paradigm that we inscribe ourselves to. If you focus on the user, you start to understand what the opportunity you're building for is. So if you're building in stable coins, the opportunity is to reshape financial rails on the world stage. It stands to reason that the first $1 trillion fintech company is going to be built on these rails, and that's because this is the first time that we get to build financial services that are not otherwise sectioned off by currency. And so, if you look at Microsoft's market cap is $3.5 trillion. About $0.5 trillion, which is JP Morgan's market cap, is based in the US. The other $3 trillion is global. And now, for the first time, we can build financial services that operate like software. So if you're building on the stablecoin side of the house, you have an absolutely massive TAM. You're building for billions of users, but it means your average user probably doesn't own a Phantom wallet yet. They probably are coming in via WhatsApp or via their email. And it means that the LTVs that you're going to be looking at, how you monetize that user, is going to be very, very different than if on the other side, you're building towards crypto natives. Here, the interactions that you should be focused on is the emergent behaviors that come from the rails that have been built. It's focused on mechanism design and how you can leverage these rails to build new consumer experiences. It's a much smaller TAM. You're going to be talking to millions, not billions of users. But the opportunity to build network effects through the assets that you're composing in your app and the LTV of any given user through trading is absolutely insane. And so the core takeaway for me when I look at the folks who are doing it absolutely amazingly in the Solana ecosystem is just know who you're optimizing for. Is your user here for the rails? Are you like Sling, building basically a global Venmo on Solana? And your core user does not care about crypto fundamentally. The value prop is about sending and receiving money worldwide. Or are you like Jupiter, where you can see the UX here on the screen? It's much more geared towards an audience who is thinking about tokens, who understands these things, and who's engaging with a connect button on the top right. So I would urge you to be really as dumb as possible in initially defining your user. Break it down in the simplest way so that it feels too unnuanced, and then work your way backwards from there to understand what you're optimizing for. Everything that you do to move away from the optimization is extra friction that your user is going to be surprised by and having to contend with. The second rule, very related, is like prune your product. I think we see this all the time. We see basically founders that we launch with, and we sort of help on their product, and they basically come in saying, I'm going to launch with all of these features because this is going to be the unlock. I need to be able to serve, for example, the long tail of wallets out there and so on and so forth. That'll be the difference between the system working or not working for me. A decade ago, I built a mobile app. We made the disastrous mistake of choosing to build for iOS and Android. There was no sort of cross-platform at the time. We were a small team. We built for both environments, thinking, well, it's just more users. It'll make the product better. And it slowed down our development cycles hugely. So less is more. Focus on the core interactions and build up from there. A very simple example, obviously, is on wallet connector screens. If you're trying to get users with wallets to come in, don't overwhelm them with options. Give them less. I think generally, I kind of think that tribalism in crypto pushes people to try to show just like how OG they are. And by trying to show how OG they are, you're trying to really show how the sausage is getting made in the underlying systems that you've built. And your user does not care. Like broadly, your user is not interested in seeing that you support all of these different things. They want to know that you support their use case extremely well. And so whatever you can do to cut down choice, because choices hurt conversion for users, have what is the golden path in your product, and then build in escape hatches. Because part of the point of building these apps is they are built on open systems. They are built using composable primitives. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't have an opinion about what is the right way or the common way that a user will come in. Yeah, as I said, you don't get brownie points, basically, for showing your users how complex or interesting the product is. Crypto does not have different laws of physics from like general product building. It is not because there is a token that you get to absolve yourself of like what it means to craft a tighter product. On the contrary, in fact, I think because the primitives are so powerful, our job is to break them down, is to simplify them. So they're really core, what is the job to be done? Why is this here? What is the moment that my user is in at this moment in time that they're sort of getting through the conversion funnel? And then the last piece, I say humbly, I guess, as an infrastructure purveyor, but that is that the product informs the infrastructure, not the other way around. If you are building because you know the tools that you want to use and you're designing your product basically based on the tooling itself, you know you've taken a wrong step. It should be that you have designed the end-to-end user interaction. And from there, you'll pick the best tools for the job. And I would say there is kind of the Mitwood curse that you can recognize if you go deep enough into the product journey building this with infrastructure, which is you end up kind of squinting and looking at your stack, and it's insanely complex. And you convince yourself that it's insanely complex for all of these reasons. But basically, along the way, you've kind of bought into multiple assumptions that really don't hold when you put yourself back in the foot of the users. So this notion of, I really wanted to use this primitive, and so I had to use this other primitive to make it usable. Question your own premises. Try to simplify as much as you can, and as always, sort of grounded in the user. So broadly, these are the 3 rules. If we go back, it is understand your constituency, sort of pick a lane, decide who you're building for as a prime customer, and then go from there. The second is cut everything but the essentials and work your way up. And then the last one is the infrastructure comes second. You have to start with the product journey that you're building. And again, I think then there is a question, which is what remains. If we go back to this notion of closing the gap, we've just talked about a number of things that are fairly common user experience rules in building products on the web. What's different about this space? What do we still need to do? And I think my sense is that over the coming years, we'll get to see the gap between the 2 constituencies, between the stable coins and the meme coins, between the degens and the mainstream users break down. The magical part about crypto are the pieces of composability and self-custody that require new mental models. And we're finally at a point where you don't need to introduce these new mental models to build a good crypto product, but it would be such a shame if we don't get back to a place where we have these mental models to kind of get users to think about the products that they've used in ways that they couldn't before. So I'm using a neobank, and it turns out my neobank account built on crypto rails is usable on an exchange that's completely unrelated, or I can stake it for yield here on a separate surface. These are things that will require new patterns to train users in the facts that the in-app experience is actually not locked in. It's opened up to the external world, and that is the thing that we have to build now. Broadly, it is building basically better intuitive composability across apps. It's looking at security and making transaction simulation and drainer prevention more simple. It is looking at privacy as a default, and this gets me to my sort of next point. What gets me so excited about a lot of what I'm seeing in Solana is the co-evolution of, call it, protocol design, infrastructure, and products. You have folks like Alliance and Coliseum who are doing amazing work just kind of really quickly turning feedback loops by having great builders build really cool products and then feed that data back into, call it, Solana itself, or folks like ourselves, Privy, Helios, and other infrastructure providers. And for example, Solana launched confidential transactions. And you can tell from looking at the shape of that piece of protocol design that it was designed for specific applications in mind. So this version of, call it, the water cycle that's happening in Solana is, to me, the most exciting thing about this ecosystem, actually, which is apps are directly informing protocol design, but they're not bleeding into each other. The protocol is not the app, and your app should not suffer because of the protocol that you've picked to build on. And so with that, I think real symbiosis means your UX is granular. It's entirely centered on the user. And yet, it builds on sort of extensible, broad standards. And magic really happens when the 2 of them meet. So go forth, experiment, and thank you so much.